Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to discuss how to manage tuberculosis in LT recipients. I will just go through the background, then epidemiology of tuberculosis, in particularly in solid organ transplant and liver transplant setting, latent tuberculosis infections, diagnostic assessment of active tuberculosis, treatment, pharmacological adjustment in this subgroup of patient, and a brief literature review about tuberculosis after living donor liver transplantation, and ILBS experience and future plans. Post-transplant tuberculosis, especially after solid organ transplant tuberculosis, is a major problem. It has 20 to 50 times higher incidence compared to the general population, depending on the endemicity of tuberculosis in that particular country. Renal and lung transplant recipients are supposed to be at higher risk than liver transplant recipients. Prompt diagnosis of tuberculosis infection can decrease mortality because most of the series observed a delay in onset of symptoms and confirmation of diagnosis of tuberculosis. And in this subgroup of patient of liver transplant recipient, administration of ATT is not straightforward. Major concerns are the hepatotoxicity of the drugs, which are considered as the best sterilizers for tuberculosis, and drug interaction with the immunosuppression agents, which may put them at higher risk of graft loss if adequate immunosuppression is not given. Coming to the epidemiology, the prevalence of TB among solid organ recipients is 0.5 to 6.4% in a low endemic area versus 15.2% about in high endemic areas respectively. The peak of TB incidence occurs usually within the first year of transplantation when the immunosuppression is at the highest level. Median onset between 6 to 16 months, time duration of a month at least is from symptom onset to tuberculosis diagnosis. There are multiple high risk factors reported, but for the liver purpose, these are the high risk factors identified from a retrospective review. Native country prevalence low versus high, age at transplantation more than 50, social factors like homelessness or prisoners, known tuberculosis history, personal or family history of treated or untreated tuberculosis, comorbidities like diabetic mellitus, malnutrition, chronic HIV infection, and higher MELD scores. Chest imaging, chest radiograph may be normal, that is another problem, and immunosuppressive agents, especially intensification of immunosuppression to treat an episode of acute cellular rejection, or mTOR inhibitors like everolimus or sirolimus, and T-cell depleting antibodies, though not much used in the recent era of liver transplantation. TB-related case fatality among LT recipients range from 30 to 40% in the historic series, but the recent series have shown a little decrease to 26% of case fatality, and mTOR inhibitors are also considered as an independent risk factor for development of tuberculosis. In a review almost 10 years back about a systematic review of all cases, a case fatality rate of 80% was reported among 104 LT recipients, predominantly DDLT recipients in Western subgroup. Early, less than 5 months, TB is associated with higher case fatality rate. As I told earlier, this is the phase of intense immunosuppression. Overall mortality was statistically significant and depends on the type of ATT a patient received or can receive in the absence of or presence of hepatotoxicity and adverse drug reactions. The observed short-term mortality was highest in patients who could not receive the standard multi-drug therapy versus patients who can receive 2 drugs, 25%, 3 drugs, 15%, and 4 or more drugs, 11% fatality was reported. Coming to the latent tuberculous infection in LT candidates is another important issue. On the background of the severity and high case fatality rate, it is a standard practice to evaluate all the candidates for LT for presence of latent tuberculous bacterial infection. LTBI can be defined as an infection by viable tuberculous microorganisms that are resting in a dormant state. The LT candidate or recipient must have no clinical or radiographic findings of active tuberculosis disease. Otherwise, he has to treat for active tuberculosis and not as latent. Every LT candidate should be screened for LTBI using at least one immunological test and a chest radiograph. Immunological tests include tuberculous skin testing or IGRS. Coming to the advantages and disadvantages of this screening test, as all of us know, TST is still practiced widely, though India is a very high prevalence country. There is universal immunization by BCG. Interpretation becomes difficult, but the guidelines are either from the American or European countries, especially the Spanish group. So tuberculous testing have poorer performance, especially in patients with chronic liver disease. Lack of information on managing patients with positive TST results alone. Universal BCG vaccination program followed in our country. Very low positive predictive value of 5.2% to 23.8% for development of post-transplant tuberculosis. This data has come from the renal transplant registry, not liver transplant. The Spanish group reported that only 29.6% of LT patients with TST positivity actually received treatment for LTBI. Though there are guidelines, but there is wide variation among pulmonologists, hepatologists, and real practice about the treatment and management of LTBI. Interferon gamma release assays, IGRAs, have emerged as a new diagnostic tool in the last decade. They offer some advantage as compared to TST. Please correct me, the microbiologist can help me about this, but what I can figure out is there is reduction in false positive results related to previous exposure to non-tuberculous mycobacteria or BCG vaccination. They are more sensitive in candidates with chronic renal failure and advanced cirrhosis. Better correlation with clinical risk factors for LTBI in these patients. Limitations is the suboptimal negative predictive value. Does not rule out infection in patients considered to be at high risk of LTBI, like who were born in the endemic countries like India. Household contacts of a case of active TB infection, that is exposure. And correctional facilities like prisons and homeless shelters, but probably this group is not addressed properly. Higher cost, obviously, to add it into the cost of liver transplant, and serial screening is more confusing because interpretation of this test is difficult. So coming to LTBI, if one or both immunological tests are negative and the end organ is liver, then risk assessment is still required if risk factors which I have mentioned are identified or as a result of chest scan. If one or both immunological tests are positive, LTBI treatment should be initiated after ruling out active tuberculous disease, because the results and the regimens for active tuberculosis and LTBI are obviously different. Another new addition is the role of FDG PET scan may differentiate LTBI from active tuberculosis. In cases of LDLT, the donor should be screened for LTBI using at least one immunological method and a chest radiograph. That is the practice also we followed. Then for LTBI, INH is the ATT drug of choice. The dose is 2.5 to 5 milligram per kg per day, up to 300 milligram per day, with pyridoxine. And ideal duration is 6 to 9 months, but that is rarely followed. Alternative options are 3 to 4 months treatment with rifampicin alone, or INH and rifampicin for 3 to 4 months, but there is increased risk of liver failure. Rifampicin-based therapies are not recommended after LT because the risk of drug interaction with the immunosuppressive agents. Acylator, acylator, status should be checked at a treatment initiation, and close monitoring of LFT is warranted. LTBR treatment is completed ideally before LT, but that may not be possible in patients with high MELD area or high MELD scores, or patients with HCC, and then a 3 to 12 day break is also observed in the immediate peri-transplant period, and then the treatment can be restarted after stabilization of the liver function. LTBR treatment can be carried out after LT and should not be delayed beyond 5 months after transplantation. LT recipient should be screened for LTBI in case of exposure to an active tuberculosis patient, or if there is an episode of acute cellular rejection which may need intensification of the immunosuppression. Coming to this latest guideline published in clinical transplantation, these are obviously for all solid organ transplantation, and we need to tailor according to the liver transplant alone. The first line regime is the 9 months INH. As I told, it is difficult to follow, and only up to 30% patients can receive 9 months duration, 4 months rifampicin, or 3 months of INH pyrazinamide, but that is also not recommended in liver patients. Alternative regimens with disadvantage relative to first line is 6 months of INH, then rifabutin, then INH and rifampicin, and then 4 months of INH and rifampicin. Mechanism of transmissions, there are 3 ways how a liver transplant recipient can acquire tuberculosis. First and the most common is endogenous reactivation of the LTBI. And then the donor-derived transmission, either the donor had a history of tuberculosis in case of DDLT, which is missed, or the graft which is harboring dormant infection, and the de novo transmission. This is the exposure of a patient to the tuberculosis positive case, and important is that this subgroup of patient have the highest risk of mortality after transplant who get a de novo tuberculosis. Endogenous reactivation, most common. Most of the reactivations are seen within the first year after transplantation. Donor-derived transmission is reported to be 3.6%, and as I told, who are exposed to Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is difficult to assess in our country, and have also increased risk of immediate progression because of the immunosuppressive status. Diagnostic assessment of active tuberculosis is another challenging area because the hallmark symptoms of tuberculosis are masked by immunosuppression in this group of patients, like weight loss or night sweats, but what is consistent is a prolonged fever or pyrexia of unknown origin. Disseminated or extrapulmonary presentations are more common after liver transplantation. Compared to the general populations, there are 67% versus 15%. These are typical clinical presentation, postponed treatment initiation because of the diagnostic dilemma. A mean time to treatment after symptom onset is about 4 to 4.7 months, which might attribute to the risk of, attribute to the mortality of this subgroup of patients. Radiological features, all type of features can be seen. What they have described is pleomorphic, but typical cavitary disease is rare due to the impaired T cell function in this group of patients. A wide range of radiographic manifestation can be observed, like focal infiltrates, miliary pattern, nodules, pleural effusions, and or diffuse interstitial infiltrates. But a normal chest X-ray is observed in 30% of the patients. A chest, abdomen, and pelvic CT scan is strongly recommended, as extrapulmonary tuberculosis is also quite common after liver transplantation. Coming to the pathological or microbiological diagnosis, is liver biopsy may be non-specific. The differential diagnosis with acute graft or rejection is difficult to conclude. Cultures of samples obtained from the involved sites remains the most sensitive detection method, but the load or low Mycobacterium inoculum frequently leads to microbiological confirmation failures, but this should not delay the treatment if the clinical suspicion is strong. Amplification test, including specific PCR, may help. Treatment, now coming to the important, ATT drugs should be chosen on a case-by-case basis. The key determinants are the liver function test, the individual risk and consequence of hepatotoxicity, the graft rejection risk, the risk of drug-drug interaction with the immunosuppressive drugs, clinical presentation and severity of tuberculosis. 35% of LT recipient presenting with active TB experience treatment discontinuation, and that reflects in the survival of these patients. And almost 73% patients develop hepatotoxicity and 30% drug interaction. Rifampicin and parazinamide, as I mentioned earlier, are the most sterilizing drugs with the best probability of successful outcome for standard ATT, but they are least appropriate in a liver transplant patient. The induction phase should include at least 3 drugs with a proven antituberculous activity. In case of rifamycin use, either rifampicin or rifabutin, concentration of immunosuppressive drugs should be monitored regularly and in current practice should not be a problem. Rifabutin should be considered for use in place of rifampicin. A genotypic and phenotypic based dosing of INH should be considered whenever possible. And the second line drugs like fluoroquinolones, then ethambutol, cycloserine, aminoglycosides may be used if hepatotoxicity is observed. Aminoglycosides have another problem of that this interaction with CNI can aggravate the nephrotoxicity. Maintenance of tuberculosis therapy should include INH and rifampicin as far as possible. The optimal duration is not determined and should be considered on a case-to-case basis. The treatment duration more than 6 months is usually for bone and joint disease, central nervous system disease, severe disseminated disease, and cavitary lesions with positive culture, despite of treatment for 2 months. And 50% of these patients experience drug-induced hepatotoxicity, and that needs to be monitored carefully in expert hands. Compared with the general population, LT recipients with active TB have a 4-fold increase in the case fatality rate. And coming to the difficult part for me, the various antituberculous drugs, their pharmacokinetics, hepatotoxicity risks, but I can summarize this. First drug of choice is INH. It has increased serum concentration and half-life, and drug accumulation in slow acetylators, clinically significant increase in combination with rifampicin and parazinamide, and in low acetylators that we need to take care. Intervention for hepatotoxicity, stop INH. In case of ALT is more than 5 times upper limit of normal, or ALT is more than 3 times of upper limit of normal with symptoms of hepatotoxicity, treat in a lower dose with ALT returns to baseline and after safe reintroduction of rifampicin. The interaction with other immunosuppressive drugs is not very significant, and dose adjustment, as I told, is possible. Ideal dose is 2.5 to 5 milligram in slow acetylators and 7.5 in rapid acetylators. Standard dose otherwise is 4 to 5 milligram per day. Rifampicin, another important part of ATT, increased serum concentration and half-life, reduced autoinduction after repeated doses, clinically significant increase in combination with INH and PZA. Stop RMP in case of, again, ALT more than 5 times upper limit of normal. And then rifampicin can greatly reduce the concentration of cyclosporine and immunosuppressive drugs. A 2 to 3-fold increase in the dosage of oral cyclosporine should be implemented at RMP initiation, though most of the centers now follow tacrolimus over cyclosporine in this group of patients. Standard dose is 10 milligram per kg per day. Caution above 600 milligram per day. Then next is the rifabutin. If we can't use rifampicin, then the another group is rifabutin, but it has the unusual side effect of uveitis. Increase in rifabutin exposure only in patients with severe liver disease, but this is not relevant for post-transplant setting, and there is hepatotoxicity is not much relevant. Then drug interaction is also similar to that of rifampicin but lower magnitude. The immunosuppressive drug monitoring is recommended, and that is the standard of care in present, but prolonged therapy needs more frequent levels of CNI, weekly CNI levels are advised. Pyrazinamide, what I understood is that a drug which liver physicians and surgeons should keep away. Ethambutol is and fluoroquinolones has emerged as the preferred drug of choice considering the safe liver profile in current practice. Coming to the non-tuberculous mycobacteria, infection developed following exposure in the environment, although nosocomial infections are reported. NTM infections are not reportable, and so the exact incidence is not estimated, accounted around less than 1%. In a series of 34 SOT recipients, including 4 liver transplants, the median time to NTM disease was 8 months post-transplant. Most common pathogens are Mycobacterium abscessus and Mycobacterium avium complex, and pleuropulmonary disease was the most common presentation, followed by disseminated disease. Also reported in skin, soft tissue, musculoskeletal, and catheter-associated infections. A multi-drug regimen is recommended for 3 months to 2 years, depending on the type of infection. 2-drug therapy can be used, however, 3 agents are recommended when the illness is life-threatening. Surgery may be required to treat localized infections because NTM infections may persist despite of antimicrobial therapy. Coming to LDLT, 2 important reports. First is the clinical outcomes of tuberculosis from the Taiwan group after living donor liver transplantation. This is a retrospective study involving LDLT recipients with active tuberculosis infection, almost a study period of 22 years, including 1,300 LDLT recipients. Out of this, 2% patient got active tuberculosis. The median follow-up in that series was 49 months, and 14 patients with pre-LT tuberculosis, but there was no difference in overall survival. 9 patients developed adverse drug reactions, 6 patients developed acute cellular rejection, 7.7% developed anti-TB drug-induced hepatotoxicity, 11% were not able to complete the treatment, and that is the group where mortality was observed, 11% mortality. The overall median survival time from TB diagnosis was 49 months. The overall 1 year and 5 year survival rates after TB diagnosis were 92 and 86% respectively. This is the demographics. Median age of TB diagnosis 56. Male to female ratio is almost comparable, 60 versus 40, and the etiology is HCC, HBV predominantly, HBV alone without HCC 3, HCV only 3, and HBV with alcoholic 1. Median male is quite low, 11, and most of them are either child A or child C. Equal distribution across the child class, and common site was pulmonary, extrapulmonary, and disseminated were observed in 4 patients each. And this is the relationship of ADR and completion of treatment. And there is, as I told, patients with ADR or who could not complete the ATT have lower survival compared to the patient who could complete ATT. There was no significant association between the use of different anti-ATT regimens, rifampicin-based versus rifampicin-based, INH-based, and the development of ADR or overall mortality. Received either rifampicin or rifampicin together with INH, ethambutol, and or pyrazinamide. Most of the patient TB treatment completion, 88% completion rate, 58.3 overall survival estimate for those with ADR, and an overall 5-year survival rate was 86%. Patients who completed TB treatment have 100% overall survival rate. India is a high prevalence country, all of us know, for tuberculosis. Most cases of tuberculosis after transplantation develop within the first year. The role of tuberculosis testing, TST and IGRA and INH prophylaxis in LTIs remain undefined in the high prevalence area. This is due to the large baseline positive rates of TST in high prevalence areas and the poor performance of the TST in immunosuppressed patient. This is a case series published by the RELA group in liver transplantation in about 2014. This is a retrospective review and a case control study of identified cases with TB and age-matched liver transplant recipients without TB. There are 214 patients. Overall prevalence was 5 out of 200, about 2.3%, which is comparable to the low endemic areas like Western countries. A low rate of IGRA testing, only 31%. Extrapulmonary or disseminated disease was more common, 80%. The diagnosis was based on positive ZN staining for AFBs and M tuberculosis specific PCR for all patients. Compared with the match healthy recipients, the presence of unexplained granulomas in explants were seen in about 40% patients, was the only factor associated with development of tuberculosis. They treated with a standard anti-TB regimen of INH, rifampicin, parazinamide, and ethambutol. Tacrolimus levels were adjusted to compensate for interaction with rifampicin. Patients were treated for a median of 12 months. Drug-induced hepatotoxicity was not observed, that is surprising. ACR was not observed during the treatment period. Explant showing granulomas were in the entire cohort were 6.27%. Post-transplant TB was associated with high mortality rate, about 40%, but it's a short case series of 5 patients. So coming to conclusion is difficult. Coming to the ILBS cohort, thanks to Ashok for sharing me the data. This is most of the readmissions after transplantations or revisit, 24 adult patients, and the data is till 2019. Out of them, 22 were male recipients, 21 patients have pulmonary tuberculosis, 3 patients have disseminated tuberculosis, and in this group, only 5 patients had a history of pre-transplant TB and received treatment for LTBI. All patients were received modified ATT, and till 2018, another important ILBS experience is 9 patients underwent emergency liver transplantation for ATT-induced liver failure. Etiology of these patients is commonest is ethanol, then viral disease, hepatitis B and C, autoimmune hepatitis, NASH, and others are like Wilson's disease, Burkieri syndrome, and crypto in 6 patients. So future plan, I think this area is a bit overlapping, and definitely a multidisciplinary group or a liver transplant tuberculosis group is will be more rewarding and should include microbiologist, radiologist, hepatologist, pulmonologist, and surgeon to formulate further. There are multiple ways to look after and retrospect the data. The prevalence of active TB or LTBI in candidates awaiting liver transplantation, the hepatology, are the better to address this issue. What I suggest that we can have an RCT for pre-LT therapy for LTBI to get the best possible regimen observed, because we see a significant number of patients. Then another important aspect I want to key, association between sarcopenia and TB or LTBI. If in stage liver disease, LT tuberculosis study group, as I already told, because it's a multifactorial, right from starting with the positive MTT, strongly positive, and otherwise healthy donor, to a post-transplant miliary tuberculosis. There is a wide range of spectrum and needs to be addressed in different specialties like radiological assessment, microbiological assessment, the correlation between the two. Then obviously a patient who had suspicion or latent tuberculosis in a living donor, we are skeptical to accept him as a donor. But despite of that, how is the reactivation? And preemptive therapy in cases of clinical suspicion, especially post-transplant fever, sepsis, or pyrexia of unknown origin. And considering the high endemic area, I should think that we should develop protocols similar to CMV infection in the West, and whether we can start RCTs like preemptive versus prophylaxis in depending on the stratification of the group from low, moderate, and high. We may need to develop these models in future. because post-transplant tuberculosis is a significant problem. And another is the role of PET scan in evaluation of latent versus active tuberculosis infection in recipients awaiting liver transplantation.